Hi, I'm William. I'm training to be a voice actor. I took the name Tome Shredder after Magic the Gathering, the Tome Shredder Wolf. I am reading Machiavelli, and this is Chapter 3 of Mixed Principalities. But the difficulties reside in the new principality first. It is not altogether new, but like an added member, so that taken as a whole, it could be called almost mixed. Its instability arises in the first place from a natural difficulty that exists in all new principalities. This is that men willingly change their lords in the belief that they will fare better. This belief makes them take up arms against him, which they are deceived because they see later by experience that they have done worse. That follows from another natural and ordinary necessity, which requires that one must always offend those over whom he becomes a new prince, both with men at arms and with infinite other injuries that the new acquisition brings in its wake. So you have as enemies all those whom you have offended in seizing that principality, and you cannot keep as friends those who have put you there because you cannot satisfy them in the mode that they have presumed, and because you cannot use strong medicines against them, since you are obligated to them. For even though one of many have the strongest of armies, he always needs the support of the inhabitants of a province in order to enter it. Though these caused Louis XII and France quickly occupied Milan and quickly lost it, and Ludovico's own forces were enough to take it from him for the first time. For those people who had opened the gates to him, finding themselves deceived in their opinion and in that future good they had presumed for themselves, were unable to tolerate the vexations of the new prince. And it is indeed true that when countries that have rebelled are later acquired for the second time, they are lost with more difficulty, because the Lord, seizing the opportunity offered by the rebellion, is less hesitant to secure himself by punishing offenders, exposing suspects, and providing for himself in the weakest spots. So it was that, if the Duke Ludovico stirring up a commotion at the borders was enough to make France lose Milan the first time, to make him lose it the second time, the whole world had to be against him, and his armies eliminated or chased from Italy. This arises from the causes given above. Nonetheless, both the first and second times it was taken from him. The universal causes of the first have been discussed. It remains now to say what were the causes of the second, and to see what remedies there were to him, which someone in his situation could use to maintain himself better in his acquisition than France did. Now I say that such states which, when acquired, are added to an ancient state of him who acquires them, are not either of the same province and the same language or not. When they are, they may be held with great ease, especially if they are not used to living free. And to possess them securely, it is enough to have eliminated the line of the old prince whose dominions they were. For when their old conditions and maintained for them in other things, For when their old conditions are maintained for them in other things, and there is no disparity of customs, men live quietly, as if it may be seen that Burgundy, Brittany, Gascony, and Normandy, which have been with France for so long a time, have done. And although there may be some disparity of language, nonetheless the customs are similar, and they can easily bear with one another. And whoever acquires them, if he wants to hold them, must have two concerns: one, that the bloodline of their ancient prince be eliminated, and the other not to alter either their laws or their taxes, so that in a very short time it becomes one whole body with their ancient principality. But when one acquires states and provinces disparate in language, customs, and orders, here are the difficulties, and here one needs to have great fortune and great industry to hold them. And one of the greatest and quickest remedies would be for whoever acquires it to go there to live in person. This would make that possession more secure and more lasting, as the Turk had done in Greece. Despite all these other orders observed by him, so as to hold haste to that state, if he had not gone there to live, it would have not been possible for him to hold it. For if you stay there, disorders may be seen as they arise, and you can soon remedy them. If you are not there, disorders become understood when they are great, and there is no longer a remedy. Besides this, the province is not despoiled by your officials. The subjects are satisfied when ready access to the prince, so that they have more cause to love him if they want to be good, and if they want to be otherwise, more cause to fear him. Whatever outsider might want to attack that state has more hesitation in doing so. Hence, when one lives in it, one can lose it with greatest difficulty. The other better remedy is to send colonies there, as it were feathers of the state, to no one or two places, because it is necessary either to do this or to hold them with many men at arms and infantry, and does not spend much time on colonies without expense of one's own, or with little one may send them to hold them, and one offends only those from whom takes fields and houses in order to give those new inhabitants, who are a very small part of that state. And since those whom he offends, since they remain dispersed and poor, can never harm him, while all the others remain in the other's hand unhurt, and for this they should be quiet. On the other, they are afraid to err from the fear that what happened to them and despoiled might be happened to them. I conclude that such colonies are not costly, are more faithful and less offensive, and those who are offended can do no harm, since they are poor and dispersed, as was said. For this has to be noted, that men should either be caressed or eliminated, because they avenge themselves for the slightest slight offenses, but cannot do so for the grave ones. So the offense one does to a man should be such that does not fear revenge for it. But when one holds a state with men at arms in place of colonies, one spends more since one has to consume all the income of that state in guarding it. So the acquisition turns to loss. The one offends much more because one harms the whole state as one's armies move around for lodgings. Everyone feels this hardship, and each becomes one's enemy. And those are enemies that can harm one since they remain, though defeated in their homes from every side. Therefore, keeping a guard in this way is as useless as keeping a guard by means of colonies is useful. Whoever is in a province that is disparate, and as was said, should also make himself head to defender of the neighboring lesser powers, and contrive to weaken the powerful in the province, and to take care of that through some accident of a foreigner as powerful as he does not enter there. And it will always turn out that a foreigner will be brought by those in province who are malcontent, either because of too much ambition or out of fear. As once the Anatolians were seen to bring the Romans into Greece, and then in every other province they entered, they were brought in by its inhabitants. And the order of things is such that as soon as a powerful foreigner enters a province, all those in it are less powerful adhere to him, moved by the envy they have against whoever they held the power over them. So with respect of these lesser powers, he has no trouble in gaining them, because altogether they will quickly and willingly make one mass with the state that he has acquired here. He has only to worry that these lesser powers may get too much force and too much authority, and with these forces, and their support can he easily put down those who are powerful, as to remain a arbiter of the province in everything. And whoever does not conduct this policy will soon lose what he has acquired, and while he holds it, will have infinite difficulties and vexations within it. The Romans observed these policies well in the provinces they took. They sent out colonies, indulged the lesser powers, without increasing their power, put down the powerful, and did not allow foreign powers to gain reputation there. And I want the province of Greece alone to suffice as an example. The Achaeans and the Aetolians were indulged by the Romans. The kingdom of Macedonia was brought down, and Antiochus was chased out. Nor did the merits of the Achaeans or those of the Aetolians make the Romans permit them to increase any state of theirs. Nor did the persuasion of Philip ever induce them to be his friends, without putting him down. Nor could the powerful of Antiochus make them consent to his holding of any state in the province. For the Romans did in these cases what all wise princes should do. They not only have to consult in regard for present troubles, but they also for future ones, and they have had to avoid these with all their industries, because when one foresees from afar, one can easily find a remedy for them. But when you wait until they come close to you, the medicine is not in time, because the disease has become incurable. And it happens with this, as physicians say of consumption, that in the beginning of an illness it is easy to cure and difficult to recognize, but in the progress of time, when it has not been recognized and treated in the beginning, it becomes easy to recognize and difficult to cure. So it happens in affairs of state, because when one recognizes from afar the evils that arise in a state, or which is not given to be one who is prudent, then they are soon healed. But when they are left to grow, because they were not recognized to the point that everybody recognizes them, there's no longer any remedy for them. Thus the Romans, seeing inconveniences from afar, always found themselves remedies for them, and never allowed them to continue so to escape a war, because they knew that war may not be avoided, but it's deferred to the advantage of others. So they decided to make the war with Philip and Antiochus in Greece, in order not to have to do so in Italy. And they could have avoided both, one and the other, for a time, but they did not want to. Nor did they saying ever please them, which they said everyday life in the mouths of the wise men of our times, to enjoy the benefit of time, but rather they enjoyed the benefit of their virtue and prudence. For time sweeps everything before it, and can bring with it good as well as evil, and evil as well as good. But let us return to France, and examine whether he has done anything spoken of. I will speak of Louis, and not of Charles, as the steps of the former, because he held his possessions in Italy longer, may be seen better, and you will see that he did quite the contrary, if the things that should be done to hold a state in a disparate province. King Louis was brought into Italy by the ambitions of the Venetians, who wanted to gain half of the state of Lombardy for themselves and by his coming. I do not want to blame the course adopted by the king, for since he wanted to begin by gaining a foothold in Italy, having no friends in this province, indeed, having all doors closed to him, because of the conduct of the King Charles, he was forced to take up whatever friendships he could get. And having formally adopted this course, he would have succeeded if managing their other things had not made some error. Thus, when he had acquired Lombardy, the king regained quickly the reputation that Charles had taken from him. Genoa yielded to the Florentines because his friends, the Marquis of Mantua, Duke of Ferrara, Bentivoglio, Madonna of Flori, the lords of Faenza, of Passaro, of Rimini, of Comino and Pomino, and the Lucans, Pisans, and Sinis, everyone who came to meet him so as to become his friend. And the Venetians could not consider the Venetians could not consider the temerity, and the Venetians could consider the temerity of the course they had adopted to acquire 2 lands in Lombardy and make the king lord of 2/3 of Italy. One may now consider One may now consider with which one may now consider with how little difficulty the king could have maintained his reputation in Italy if he had to observe the rules written above and had held secure and defended all those friends of his who, because they were at great number, weak and fearful. Some of the Venetians were always under the necessity to stay with him, and by their means he could always have secured himself easily against whoever remained great amongst us. But no sooner was he in Milan than he did contrary by giving aid to the Pope Alexander, so that the Pope might seize the Romagna. Nor did he notice that with the decision he was weakening himself, stripping himself of his friends and those who have jumped into his lap, while making the church great by adding so much temporal greatness to the spiritual one that gives it such authority. And having made the first error, he was compelled to continue, so that to put an end to the ambition of Alexander, and to prevent his coming of Lord Tuscany, he was compelled to come into Italy. It was not enough for him just to have made the church, to have stripped it himself, because he wanted the kingdom of Naples. He divided it with the king of Spain. Whereas he first was the arbiter of Italy, he brought in a companion, so that the ambitious ones may in that province, and those malcontent with him, had somewhere to turn. And whereas he could not have left the kingdom a king who was prisoner, so he threw him out, and asked to bring him one that could expel him. And truly it is a very natural and ordinary thing to desire, acquire, and always, when men do it who can, they will be praised or not blamed, but when they cannot wish to do it anyway, here lie the error and the blame. Thus, if France could have attacked Naples with his own forces, he should have done so. If he could not have divided Naples. And if the division of Lombardy he made with the Venetians deserves the excuse, because the France gained a foothold in Italy, thus one deserves blame because it was not excused by that necessity. So then Louis had to make these 5 errors. He had eliminated the lesser powers, increased the power in Italy, brought in a very powerful foreigner, and did not come to live there, did not come to put colonies there. Yet he had lived. The errors could not have hurt him if he had not made a 6th, depriving the Venetians of the state, and for he had not made the church great, or he brought Spain into Italy. It would have indeed been reasonable and necessary to put down the Venetians, but when he had adopted these curses first, he should never have consented to the ruin. For while they were powerful, they would always have kept others away from Champagne and Lombardy, where it was because the Venetians would not have consented to them unless they themselves were to become its lords, or because of the others would not have wanted to take Lombardy from France in order to give it to the Venetians, and they would not have had the spirit to go and attack both of them. And if someone should say King Louis ceded Romagna to Alexander in the kingdom to Spain to avoid war, I reply with the reason of giving above, that a disorder should never be allowed to continue so as to avoid a war, but because it is not to avoid it, but to defer it to your advantage. And some others should cite the faith that the king had pledged to the Pope, to undertake the enterprise for him to return to dissolving his marriage, and for that had of ruin. I reply with what will I say below the king's faith princes, and how it should be observed. Thus King Louis Thus King Louis lost Lombardy for not having observed any of the conditions observed by others who have taken provinces and wish to hold them. Now this is merely a miracle, but very ordinary the reasons reasonable. And I spoke of this matter at Nantes with um, Valentino. So for Caesar Borgia, son of Pope Alexander, was called by the people in occupying Romagna, for when the Cardinal of Rouen said it came to meet that the Italians do not understand war, I replied to him the French do not understand the state, because if they understood the state, they would not have let the church come to such greatness. And it may have been seen from experience that the greatnesses come from Italy, and the church come from Spain, and has been caused by France, and France's ruin caused by them. So from this one may draw a general rule that never or rarely fails. Whoever is the cause of someone's becoming powerful is ruined, for that power has been caused by him either to wish industry or with force, and both the one and the other of these two are suspect to whoever has become powerful. All right, that was three. That was chapter 3 by Machiavelli in The Prince. So, yep. All right, I'm going to put it on YouTube.